Hey folks, welcome to The Flow, where professionals in the fastest growing companies come to share their best practices, tips in perfecting their workflow. I'm your host, Tyler Koblasa, and today we have on Andi Galpern.
Hi.
And Andi recently joined CloudApp as a design evangelist and is founder of CASCADE SF. Mm-hmm. We previously actually met a number of years ago, I think the CASCADE community.
Yes, we met at CASCADE for 4 years. I think it was about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's exciting to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And obviously with CloudApp. Mm-hmm. So, we'd love to hear a little bit about your background and kind of how you came to really design in general, and then also what led you to kind of starting the CASCADE community in San Francisco.
Okay. So starting with my background. Okay. Where did I start with design? Well, when I was in third grade, I snuck into my mom's closet and I found a calligraphy set, and I borrowed it and I explored calligraphy, and then I got really obsessed with just doodling all the time. And then when I was 15, I interned at my father. He's a CPA. He has all these clients, and one of his clients had an ad agency. So he set me up with an internship at 15, and I was doing like desktop publishing and playing around with playing around with advertising. And I would always make these silly campaigns and stuff. So I went to college and I studied graphic design, and I also did web in South Florida. Then I moved to San Francisco to expand. I worked at a corporate ad agency. Then I moved to San Francisco to expand my skills in web design, and here I am. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And then specifically kind of the CASCADE community, when you, what was the initial inspiration for kind of that community coming together, and as you've kind of built it up?
Okay. Well, that actually happened. It was a long time ago. It was like 2009. It was, wow. Yeah, it was in April. And I remember like I was learning CSS. I had to learn CSS because I couldn't get a job as a designer unless I knew CSS, and I wanted to work in the web and print. It just wasn't paying enough money, and it also didn't feel like it offered me enough opportunities. So I had to learn CSS. So I went on to Meetup and I looked for a CSS group, and there wasn't one. So they were like, would you like to create a meetup? And it was a pop-up. It was like, this is like the moment. And it's like, sure. What do you want to name it? I'm learning CSS, cascading style sheets. I'll name it Cascade. And that was the start of something very beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we actually, I created this event where 15 of us sat around the table and we printed out how to, I basically led a discussion similar to how we had classroom discussions in typography class. To print out an article and then share it, and everybody around the room would share a piece of advice. So this was about CSS buttons and sprites, and we went around the room and we learned from each other, and I learned so much. I was, in the beginning, I didn't really understand pseudo selectors and all the fun stuff, but then as I dove in and got to meet all these people in the community, they were my mentors, and I became advanced in CSS. So really, and then it became a UX thing later, as I, actually it was Luke W. who wrote a book about mobile first in 2013. He presented, and I became infatuated with UX, and I started throwing UX events, and that's where we are today.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's called UX Night is the recurring event you guys do. Is that right?
Yes. Every month we throw a UX night, and it's like we bring on a professional. Actually, it's turned into like a mini conference type thing where we have maybe 4 to 6 speakers, and I go out and I meet with the community and bring on designers and researchers, and I learn about what they do, and I help them actually craft presentations and prepare them as leaders in the community. So it's really cool because, sometimes we get a speaker. It used to be more about like the names, like really big names. And we would, I would interview like Josh Constein from TechCrunch, the editor at large from TechCrunch, and like Mark Otto, who created Bootstrap. And I would do these like famous kind of interviews like on stage, and it would be awesome. But then I found the more rewarding stuff to be actually working with the community and helping them create their own content. And also it's rewarding for me, it's rewarding for them, and it kind of builds this like this whole mentor thing vibe that makes it really fun.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Now, as that journey kind of building a Cascade, that's led you into kind of community building, obviously learning many of these practices and just connecting with that audience. You've also done your share of kind of like actually UX design and writing. How has that kind of the journey into like kind of content and community building transpired? It really kind of around content.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like all of the content for the events was for me personally. Well, not all of it, but I would freelance or I would work full time inside of an office. And then I would be like, I'm not able to, let me think of an example, like responsive responsive design back in the day. How do I design a responsive site? I was stuck on that. So instead I would go on Meetup and create an event and actually ask the community if there was anybody to give a talk on that particular area. And I kind of hacked my career in some ways. And then I realized that I was better at community evangelism and summarizing and helping people get clear on their thoughts and their ideas than actually designing, which I still design a lot. And I love it because like everything I learn makes me a better designer. But the events and the community stuff feels better. So
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on.
Awesome.
So you recently joined CloudUp on the kind of design evangelism side and kind of connecting with the design community to foster that. And what kind of as an entrepreneur and also as a kind of community builder, what's kind of led you to kind of make that decision and kind of go full time?
Yeah,
around that.
It's a good question as I'm talking to my boss here. Well, okay. So what made me decide to go full time? Well, for a while it was hard because I was like, I'm a designer. I can write code. Well, some code. I do HTML, CSS. I know that most of us wouldn't call that coding, but it's a helpful skill. And I prototype apps and websites and all that stuff. And so I have all these skills, but then it was like, well, what am I going to do for like the long term? How am I going to invest these skills beyond, like I could have easily, well, not very easily, but created Cascade in other cities. I've had people reach out and offer that. And it was hard for me to picture myself lifting this whole thing off the ground beyond San Francisco on my own. And I felt like maybe I belong in a team where I can collaborate with people and be like really good at what I do, but also be with other people who are really good at what they do. And we can all just like work towards a goal of creating something awesome together. Mm-hmm. So it felt like a logical step for me. And with the opportunity at CloudApp, as you guys create, we have tools that help designers and developers and writers and marketers and everybody just improve their workflow and capture screenshots and just work at the speed of sight. So yeah, so I actually love the product. So that's another thing. That's the reason that I joined as well, is like the team is awesome. The product is great. And also I have a chance to influence the culture, because you can have a product, there can be competitors, but it's really the people that make the company. So in order to keep innovating, you have to constantly learn and build this culture of like learning and sharing ideas and mentoring. So that is the reason.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, we're thrilled to be working with you. And,
high five.
Woohoo. And coming back to when we first met, we were talking about obviously at meeting at UX Night and having a couple other kind of mutual friends like Daniel Fisher and others, and always was really a huge fan of yours. And when the opportunity came to spend some time kind of working together on initially kind of content and just really the strategy, it was just honored to spend time together.
Oh, so, Tyler, thank you.
So as an entrepreneur, kind of some of the things kind of you've learned as an entrepreneur, and then how you've kind of thought about potentially leveraging those into working with us, like talking a little bit around just your journey as an entrepreneur, and maybe even starting to tie into some of the things you learned. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, working as an entrepreneur and now working on a team, how can I translate the skills? Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So like this. All right. Well, it's interesting. So a lot of it is like, I feel like CloudApp, you guys give us a lot of autonomy to be able to go out and do our thing. And I have a unique process. I go out and I meet a million people, and then I learn about their skills, and then I just like, I kind of float in some ways, and then I always come up with something. But as long as I have that freedom to like, I still come to work at 9 and put in probably 8 to whatever hours that I just, we have to work to get our job done. But I forgot the question.
Just like as you've kind of leveraged the things you've learned as an entrepreneur, and then looking at,
the most, like, I feel like it's really important to create content that people actually care about and go out and connect with the community, especially if we're creating a product for these people. What is it that they want to learn about? What do they care about? Who are they? And understand them and something, UX is all about user-centered design, but the design process is not just like, it's actually like business design. Like, how do you do business and create a product for people that's actually people are going to use? You have to understand who they are. So I feel like that's a major skill, is going out and talking to people, doing, understanding your customer, getting to know them. Also, one other thing for me, because I ran my own business, I would run these like really elaborate events. I wake up, every night before I go to bed, I list out the things that I have to do the next day. And then I have a list of things that I have to accomplish. It might be just like top 3 things, but I have a list of my short-term goals, my long-term goals, and just like meetings that I have coming up. And it's changed a little bit, but now we use Asana, which I've, now I use Asana to manage everything, which has been really helpful. So managing your schedule is really important, no matter what, if you're working in a business or working on your own. And you have to stay, like, even if I report to a boss, I still am accountable. I have to make sure that I meet my goals. And it's just kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing. It doesn't feel that much different than me working for myself, honestly. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And as far as like the team dynamic, you spent a little bit of time with the CloudApp team so far, and what's how was it as opposed to as an entrepreneur, and with CASCADE, and then with the CloudApp team? What's the
okay? So at first, I think you guys are awesome. Everybody's cool. They're laid back and it's fun. It's and everybody is good at what they do. So as long as I feel like with the team, you just have to respect each other, not because you're forced to, but because you actually understand how each person contributes to the team. So that's really important. And yeah.
Cool.
So
awesome. Now, with that in mind, like, how are you personally kind of hoping to have the biggest impact at CloudApp?
At CloudApp. Okay. So I one is like, obviously, like, influence the design community by creating awesome content and kind of combining everything from CASCADE into CloudApp and working together to inspire, create more mentoring programs. And basically this is like CASCADE amplified. So CASCADE is a UX community. We have mentor programs, we have events, and all that stuff that I love to do, that I spend my days and my nights dreaming about. I'm able to do it here, and it's awesome. So so the idea would be like, build up the design community for CloudApp, and then also help produce events beyond design and kind of set a template for the other areas that we're focused on, like developers and customer support, and make sure that we're offering the same kind of content and we're connecting with people the same ways that we do with designers.
Mm-hmm. So really, it all comes down to customer experience. And I think we've riffed a bit about obviously kind of customer experience related events, and if you even kind of dive deeper, really if you think about what's the definition of like UX, and it's about like understanding your user, understanding your customer, just having these conversations to dig in. So really, if our message and our vision is around how can we kind of go deeper with customer experience, that providing that platform with CloudApp to go into different cities, et cetera, kind of leveraging some of the practices like with CASCADE. And
yeah, absolutely. And I would love to actually, like, something that I wasn't really doing with CASCADE, but I know people around the world through Twitter. I know the whole world. Yeah, no, I would love to go to other cities and just launch events and connect with communities in other cities and just kind of explore face to face beyond Twitter and Facebook. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yep. And then kind of thinking about, community building, content creation, what first, when you started Cascade and we've obviously been working on content with CloudApp, what kind of first got you excited about specifically like content creation? Kind of, maybe this is something back from your initial kind of inspiration where you went seeking yourself and you're like, wait, what kind of got you into that?
Well, I don't even know, to be honest. That's interesting. I'm just a creative person, and I don't, my brain, I learn a lot, I read a lot, and I just like everything that goes into the brain comes out in some weird way, and that is content, I guess. But it's just really a combination of creativity and being really logical and grounded. They go together to help me create stuff that is actually useful to people. And going back to the question, what was the question?
What got you first kind of, excited about kind of content creation and education
Well, okay. So that's the other thing is that, I was the art director for my newspaper in college, and I would mentor people. I'd be like, no, we got to use a headline and we got to make sure that the image makes sense. And I would be like really like militant about this stuff and work with the journalist. And I just like it for the visual communication is really, really important. And so part of it is the passion for design and for being able to communicate really well. For me to enhance my practice as a designer, that is the reason that I created events in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And now it's more about just like learning more, growing, connecting with the community, and also just having fun. It's really fun to create content. You can pretty much have the blank canvas, and you can do it with like videos, with sound, with write scripts, and it's just like really, really fun. You just got to have a good time and not really let go a little bit. But then when it's time to meet the deadline, you got to focus. Mm-hmm. So.
As far as if anyone kind of listening was, thinking about in their community, wherever they are in the world, wanted to find events or kind of hone a skill, obviously you mentioned Meetup, any other kind of different communities or lists of events kind of related to design, product development, technology that you found useful?
Well, okay. Yes, absolutely. Well, it's funny because I don't go to as many events because I produce my own. I'm like, well, I create my own events. No, but some of them, like Envision does a great job with their content. I would go on their site and look at their blog post. That's really good. As far as events, designers and geeks, they always have a solid lineup. Mm-hmm. I would say, actually just go on Meetup, go to Meetup, mm-hmm. look up, UX productivity, start your own Meetup. Create your own. If you want to attract your tribe, then you got to create, you can set up the stage and attract the culture that you want and reflect who you are by creating your own little organization. It doesn't have to be 10,000 people, but you got to start somewhere, and you'll be impressed by how many people are interested in the same things as you. So I would say Meetup is good. Eventbrite is awesome for just like launching an event. Yep. And anything that doesn't exist, you can create it. Yeah. No, I think if you kind of go back to the early days of the internet, there was no Meetup. There weren't kind of events to go find others to connect with. I remember sitting in IRC trying to find others to talk about HTML with or Perl. And I mean, that was your community. I'm sitting on FNet. AOL chat rooms.
Yeah, good old chat rooms. And then it kind of, as it evolved, I spent some time at Startup Weekend, and then we did a little meetup called Startup Nights. Kind of shout out to the Silicon Beach team and everyone down there. But yeah, definitely like it's a really powerful time as far as if there's something you want to learn, to actually reach out and through Meetup and these other communities. And then that really kind of comes to like relationships and your career and opportunities. Yeah. How have you kind of seen it as far as like relationships played a role in kind of your career and Cascade, and just as you've kind of built up the...
Well, that's a really good point. Actually, so in terms of relationships, I just believe in being authentic. And if somebody like even post something with like a lot of curse words on the meetup page, I'll just message them privately. I'm like, hey, that's not appropriate conduct for our group, but feel free to use it elsewhere, just not in here. But it's just, you know, being authentic, helping people, making sure that you understand the value of their time. If you set up a meeting with them, then if I set up a meeting with you, then I should we should respect each other's time and actually be on time and listen to each other and just having a plan. Relationships are definitely one of them. The other part I would say is like, be fearless. Like, don't be afraid to ask dumb questions or just ask questions. Just, you know, if you ask a question, then you can keep tweaking the question, then you'll get an answer. But put yourself out there, and I'm fearless, which might be a bad thing. But it's been a good thing because I've been able to just like reach out to people and I'm like, hey, do you want to speak at our event? Or hey, can I interview you? But just take a chance and don't be afraid of being rejected, because chances are that if you have an idea in mind and you want to create something, then you got to put yourself out there to take that step, and you can keep refining it, and you just got to start.
Yeah, I entirely agree. My a friend from many years ago, there was this kind of 4 words. It was just show up. And if there was some sort of event or opportunity, you just show up. And I can definitely say in my journey, even specifically with CloudApp, you know, I just showed up at an SF Ruby event this is probably like 6-7 years ago in San Francisco, and it kind of sparked, you know, one introduction to another individual, and that whole journey kind of stemmed from just showing up. Yeah. And and I think also, if I think back about even with the early kind of Silicon Beach scene, Jason Azar had an event series going on called Startups Uncensored, and I definitely met a couple of my best friends through that community. And just, again, came back to like just show up. So it was finding other like-minded people around that whole theme and relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to add, like, part of the reason that I like CloudApp and also I like working with you, Tyler, is because you were an early member of like Startup Digest and was at Startup Weekend, and you launch events, you believe in community, you believe in learning, and you want to bring people together. So I feel like that is like a big part of the culture here. And I'm just here to help expand that. So
that's where we're thrilled to work together.
High five. 2 high fives in one podcast.
There we go.
Okay.
So I'd say, like, thinking back now, if you could identify maybe a couple individuals along your journey that really kind of influenced or maybe had guided you in different directions that kind of you think back on, any specific stories that kind of come to mind? Or
well, okay, so I am a classically trained singer, and I studied music from 5 until 21. I went to a voice coach who actually trained Pavarotti in Miami in South Florida, and I had 6 octaves, and she would always I would go there every Saturday, and she would do these scales. He's like, say, like all the way up and down the piano, and I would start to sing something, and she'd be like, what are you nervous about? There's no blood on the floor. Keep going. And she would just like encourage me to keep going. And so I think about her, Gina Moretta. She's not around. She was like 65 or like older when I went to her initially, but she also like trained Gloria Estefan, all these like big time pop stars in Miami, and people would fly around the world to go meet her. I was lucky to so I would say that she is an influencer for me to like, because I was so passionate and so diligent to get really good at singing. I would wake up every morning at 6:30 a.m. before high school and warm up my voice for a half hour. Fortunately, we lived in like a somewhat big house on the other side of the house, but then my sister like, stop singing. Yeah. So yeah, I would say Gina was one. The other one is my father, my dad, Joel Galpern. He's awesome. When he would drive me to my singing lessons, we would listen to business tapes. And my dad is an entrepreneur as well. And he listened to like Tony Robbins and all these like Zig Ziglar and all this stuff. And it was like, don't just worry, take action and stuff. This kind of embedded into my mind. So that helped inspire fearlessness. And then from the Silicon Valley, since I moved here, just working with like a lot of different mentors and a lot of people who, if I don't know something, I can ask somebody, and just like, I would say the community would be another part of it. Just general designers understanding what it is that they want to learn about, or like learning stuff for myself.
Awesome. So really kind of coming back to that community, knowing that, in the Valley or even the technology industry, an answer is usually 1 degree away, and just having access to that network, being able to solve whatever problem might arise. Exactly.
And that network is not just something that I create. Also, another really good network, now that I'm thinking about it, Designers Guild on Facebook is awesome. Marissa Louie, Tanner Christensen, they do a really great job of making sure that the content is focused on there, that designers are able to ask questions that are relevant. I would definitely check that out.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So then kind of coming back to, you mentioned, fearlessness and kind of different kind of principles that have kind of guided you. Looking at, your workflow as an entrepreneur, obviously as a design evangelist, kind of thinking about a couple different, whether they be tips or practices or a couple things that you leverage in your kind of day-to-day. You mentioned obviously kind of, writing everything down before you go to sleep to have it crisp in mind. And what are kind of a couple other? Yeah,
so having a weekly plan, a daily plan, planning your daily tasks the night before, and then reviewing them in the morning. That's really important. Waking up early, obviously, because we have to go to work, but also because I've found after like being nocturnal and like staying up all night recording music in my dungeon, whatever it's called. No, actually, I live in an apartment, not a dungeon, but anyway. I used to stay up late and record music and just like not be like free. And then I found out that I get so much more done, and I'm much happier when I set a schedule. So scheduling is really important. Planning the day before, planning, like going through your goals, making sure that you like time box things, and that would be another thing. And then also, what else? I think that's pretty good. Method. Another method is like using templates and outlining. Anytime that I create a piece of content, I am very strict about using outlines, because I want to have a clear idea of that there's a structure, that there's an architecture, and that it makes sense. So
got it. So really kind of actually having structure too. When you create content, starting with a template, and really just a way to actually kind of organize those thoughts. I personally have kind of run into situations where you're sitting there with the pen or the keyboard and staring at a blank page. Any kind of tips for anyone that's listening as far as how you just kind of
write stuff? Well, okay, yeah, it's common too. With some of that stuff, staring at a blank page is fear. So it's like us worrying that the stuff we're going to write is not good enough, or like that it's not going to come out right. But I would say number one, just free flow it and get an idea of what it is that you're looking to explore, or what you're looking to write, and then go find a general theme, then go on the Google and type in some, research topics, and grab a bunch of like, just read and grab data points and collect information, put it all in one giant Google Doc, and just go in there and then learn, and then give yourself some time to like digest everything, and then format it into an outline. And then also you can also talk to people, but the idea is that research is the core of creating good content. You have to spend time to really, don't rely on yourself solely to have all the ideas. Take some time to learn information that you didn't know, and just like get, even for just like ways of phrasing words. Sometimes I'll look online, I'll be like this, and then I'll find how somebody phrased a certain sentence, and then I'll be like, oh, that sounds better than mine. So then it's just, researching and exploring, but give yourself, your research can go like endless. It can be last forever, but at a certain point you got to take action and start creating stuff.
Yep. So, awesome. So templating and researching, really kind of digging into those two when going out to create content. Have you ever, the whole concept of just kind of using like voice to kind of riff and get thoughts and ideas out, whether that be things like Siri or speech to text, or even just kind of recording the raw audio and then going back to it. Have you ever done that? Or, yeah.
Well, okay, it's funny. So, a while ago, it's funny, my friend moved away, and I didn't really, like, she was so busy, I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I would actually record myself asking questions. And then when I was walking and I would listen to the question, and I would actually record myself answering the question.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like different ways. And then also the text to speech. I use the Google Voice to Notes thing when I just feel like I can't sit down and type. But as I've been writing more, it feels more natural for me to connect and type stuff and kind of zone in the quiet. But it's all like, it's like there are multiple ways to share content, and you don't, my dad, he'll go on and type and speak forever. And if like you can capture what he says versus like him like trying to make it concise into an email, I'd rather talk to him. So it's like whatever method works the best for you to share your knowledge.
Got it. So really kind of, again, just looking at ways to find flow where you're fully present to be able to get that information out, whether that's writing, if that works, or speaking, speech to text. Definitely become a big fan personally of like, things like Finn and Siri and all of the, like Google Voice type speech to text.
Yeah. And like
products.
set a timer for 10 minutes and then it sets a timer.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I think we just have one last question for you. If there was one meal for the rest of your life, what would be your favorite meal?
A meal?
Yeah. What's your favorite? Man.
Well, I love food.
There's a lot of good food in San Francisco.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, but it's like, if I could only have one meal, it'd probably be a salad from Whole Foods, honestly. Yeah, a salad with tofu. And I eat meat, but I just really like their tofu, like the salad and cucumbers, lettuce, all that jazz, and balsamic and olive oil. So if you're listening and you like me, you can send me Whole Foods gift card. No, I'm just kidding. Get me a salad.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Andi, for joining us on The Flow.
Yes.
And so Andi Galpern, Design Advantage CloudApp, founder at CASCADE SF. I think you guys also have an upcoming, there's a UX Night event coming up shortly. And
yes.
And I think in July, is that right?
In June.
July.
June and July.
Right.
For June, we have UX research for product design teams. And then July, we're going to have Alonso Martinez from Pixar. He's the technical director at Pixar, talking about storytelling and how they actually, like, all the different departments work together to create a cohesive story. And what's cool is our content at CloudApp is actually mirroring that. So we're having themes. In June, we're going to have it all about research. And then July, we're going to have it all about storytelling and brand storytelling.
Great.
And yeah.
And someone wanted to find out about this events, where would they go? CASCADESF.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. Thank you, Andi.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone.
Time to get back to work.
All right. Have a good day. See ya. Cheers.